The second series of revived Doctor Who is one that I have really mixed feelings about. On the one hand, it was this series that properly got me into the show as a kid, and I maintain that David Tennant is my Doctor. However, rewatching the show with a modern lens, I found certain aspects of this series to vary wildly in quality, and in some cases to be a little problematic. This isn't to say that I didn't like the second series, because I think generally I did, but unlike the first series, which had a strong sense of character and direction from the offset, it takes a few episodes for the second series to hit its stride. As I say, David Tennant is perfect as the Doctor to me, but it isn't until School Reunion where he truly begins to shine as the character. Indeed, the scene he shares with Anthony Head is the first time I became properly invested with the character. It's a fantastically written scene, delivered by two exceptional actors, and it really did serve to showcase that Tennant, like Eccleston before him, could believably portray this ancient war-weary traveller. As someone who hasn't seen terribly much of the classic series, I also appreciated this episode for properly bridging the two eras of the show. The presence of Sarah Jane also helped to further Rose's development by showing her that she isn't the first or last companion of the Doctor, and helped her to realise her own mortality in that sense. However, the stride that the second series hits after School Reunion varies massively in quality. I found the highs of Series 2 to be much higher than Series 1, but conversely the lows were so much lower. Episodes like Fear Her and Love and Monsters, while still watchable, are regarded as some of the worst episodes in the revived show, even today. I personally didn't find them to be quite as poor as some other reviewers claim, but certainly I still found them to be significantly weaker than the great episodes in Series 2 like The Satan Pit and the finale. There definitely seemed to be less cohesion between the episodes, and unlike the preceding series in which there wasn't really any filler at all, there's a handful of stories in this series that don't obviously contribute towards the series arc. I suspect that some of this may be due to the behind-the-scenes drama that occurred at the time, and so in that regard I think it's a feat that the series was able to be as good as it was, with pressure from the BBC executives, Eccleston having left rather suddenly, and just having 1 year to develop and realise 13 episodes worth of stories. That all said, I've attempted to review the series as it is without much regard for the production context, and see how well the episodes stand up on their own right without any additional background context. My issues with Rose from the first series also carried over into the second. Her selfishness only appeared to get worse, especially as the Doctor just enabled it. This made for a really interesting dynamic, especially with Mickey briefly joining the TARDIS team, and I was so glad when Mickey eventually decided to leave Rose and forge his own path. This decision fit his character arc perfectly, and demonstrated again Russell T Davies' ability to produce well-developed side characters, which made the worlds of his companions more compelling, something I think Moffat and Chibnall lacked. I'm not by the way suggesting that because I disliked Rose as a character that the drama was not well written. As I say, I think the dynamic was interesting and led to some great moments like Mickey taking a stand and deciding to stay in the parallel world. Just that, because of her flaws, I found myself empathising with the side characters like Mickey and Jackie, and from memory I enjoyed later companions like Martha and Donna a lot more. Rose was the person to bring the Doctor back to the light, so to speak, and helped him to rediscover what it meant to be the Doctor over the course of the first series, and Tennant's Doctor, while markedly more human in his interactions and mannerisms than Eccleston's Doctor was, is still an intrinsically alien character. And so I found it bizarre that he could be so warm and welcoming to Rose and a number of the other guest side characters, but unable to accept Mickey or Jackie. I felt that he put Rose up on this pedestal, and in his eyes she could do no wrong, and so as a character he became oblivious to some of her less desirable personality traits, like her selfishness, particularly with regards to how she treated Mickey. I think I would have liked to see Rose and the 10th Doctor properly clash like she did with the 9th Doctor in Father's Day, and a moment of awareness for the Doctor to realise that Rose was perhaps not as perfect as he thought she was. I did appreciate Tennant's Doctor for being generally warmer than Eccleston's. He's definitely a more accessible character, which I think is part of why he was so popular amongst general audiences. However, I found the idea of the Doctor and Rose as a romantic couple, an idea which Russell T Davies certainly flirted with in the text of the show, somewhat problematic. The idea of Rose developing feelings for the Doctor I found perfectly natural and within her character. For the Doctor to start to reciprocate them, I did not. Perhaps my perception of the character from Jodie Whittaker, Peter Capaldi, and even to an extent Matt Smith's iterations, has changed to the point where I see the Doctor as this being that's not quite omniscient, but certainly above the need for romantic companionship. I definitely find the idea of the Doctor entering into a relationship with a human being, an alien to him, somewhat uneasy, especially when you consider that in the show there's supposed to be an 880-year age difference. Of course, the two never actually do enter into a relationship, but as I say, the idea is teased, particularly in later episodes when Rose has ditched the baggage of Mickey, and it comes to a culmination in the finale when Rose verbalises her feelings. It never quite enters the text of the show, at least until the 4th series, but the Doctor's reaction plainly indicates that he felt the same way. Given how I feel about Rose as a character, I'm not sure this aspect of their relationship worked for me. I'm glad that they moved away from it slightly with Donna, and then entirely in the later Moffat era. In terms of choosing a least favourite episode, it's a boring, predictable choice, but I'll go with Love and Monsters. It broke the series' narrative entirely, and unlike its successors in Blink and Midnight, it just wasn't that good. It introduced some pretty interesting ideas. The concept of a Doctor Who fan club in-universe I actually rather enjoyed. It's just a shame that none of the characters resonated with me, the setting was plain and uninteresting, and the villain was, well, you know. As I say though, this series' highs were a lot higher than I think some people give it credit for. My favourite episode of the bunch is the Satan Pit. It had some great twists and turns and, as well as in my opinion, one of the most interesting settings in the series. But I also really enjoyed the Cyberman 2-parter and the finale. But overall this series hasn't stood the test of time for me as well as the first. I think visually the show looks very good for 2006's standards, even if some of the visual effects haven't aged especially well today. But the relationship between Rose and the Doctor just felt a bit wrong and soured some of the episodes for me that previously, no pun intended, I'd viewed with rose-tinted glasses. That being said, some of the good episodes I thought were really great, and I do still like a lot of David Tennant's characterisation, even if it took him slightly longer to warm to the role than Eccleston did. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this series in the comments below. My plan is to keep rewatching the series and giving my thoughts like this, so I do hope you'll stick around. I'll continue to do regular reviews and video essays in between so as not to totally saturate the channel for those of you who aren't especially interested in Doctor Who. But if you've enjoyed this new review, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more. And until next time, thanks.